Speaking of oversights, the new Frasier show.
Yes.
And when I say oversight, it's like, wait, they actually like made a sitcom in the year of our Lord 2023?
Yes,
Is
with
that
a
allowed?
yeah, I guess so.
So Daniel, you've watched a lot more Frasier than I have. I might have caught a couple of episodes back when it was current,
Yeah.
and at least to my ears, whenever I hear Kelsey Grammer, I keep expecting him to threaten Bart and Lisa Simpson.
Yeah. Hello, bud.
Hello, Bart. Especially Bart, but especially Lisa.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so Frasier as a character, yeah, he started out on Cheers,
Hmm.
and then they spun it off into his own show, which was originally in Frasier. Okay, so Cheers was set in Boston, and then Frasier was set in Seattle.
Hmm.
And Seattle was his hometown, and he had a radio show there. He's a psychiatrist,
Hmm.
and he had a kind of like a Dr. Laura type show, and so the whole crux of that show was he had to live with his father. His father was a cop, got shot in the hip, and that's why he walked around with a cane. And then of course the other cast of characters included Fraser's brother Niles, and then his father's live-in physical therapist Daphne, who's British. She's from Manchester, and Niles so long story short, Niles and Daphne by the end of the show they end up getting married and they had a kid, and their kid by the way is a character in the show,
Yep.
uh, uh, David. I think they named him after David Hyde Pierce, who played Niles.
Okay.
Um, and then the last episode of the show also saw his dad getting remarried, and then Frasier actually moving off to Chicago because he got a new girlfriend that he wanted to be with, and that's part of the crux of the show was he was very unlucky in love. He never could, he was already divorced, and he has a son, his son Frederick or Freddie, and that was basically the whole thing was him. And every time he would get a new girlfriend, what would happen? The biggest flaw of his is he's a very smart guy. He's very intellectual, very brilliant,
Hmm.
but that intellect gets in the way a lot. Like he overthinks things, and so that overthinking ends up just completely ruining a lot of those relationships. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
That seems to have transferred to his son in this show.
yes, and and it, I will say my favorite type of Frasier episode, because
Mhm.
there are obviously different types of these long running sitcoms. There's usually like three or four different types of episodes. My favorite type of episode is when Frasier and Niles are trying to do something that's completely out of their wheelhouse, out of their knowledge,
Mhm.
and it just turns into an absolute disaster.
Okay, so like you have these two high class Harvard elite people who
Yeah.
like yeah, I could see a lot of funny scenarios you could put them in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And But yeah, so that's basically that was basically the old Frasier show, and then this show picks up, in modern day. Frasier's back in Boston for he's doing a guest lecture for another Harvard professor who's his friend from college, and he's there with his nephew. And his by the way, like the little eccentricities with his nephew. There's that was Niles. He's is so like father like son with those two. Um, and
And they have a new character whose name I forget, who's a teacher at Harvard.
Yeah, that was yeah Frasier's friend. I can't remember.
He wasn't in that was one of the questions I had, is he wasn't a returning character from the sounds of it.
No, the only returning characters would be Frasier and I guess his son, because his son was in a few episodes, but obviously played by child actors. Um, let's see, what's
And
his
they
name?
didn't track down that exact same child actor 27 years or 20 odd years later.
I know,
It's
just
such inconsistency.
I know. Alan is the British guy. Yeah,
Okay.
his yeah, and then yeah,
Yep. So as a sitcom, this show has a few vectors. Like when I say vectors, I mean like it's got a few engines to bring up drama.
yeah,
So first off, it's Frasier and his estranged son connecting
mhm, yeah,
because his son had gone to Harvard but dropped out,
mhm,
and it was an embarrassment to the old man because he was, a highfalutin type, and his son just wanted to be a fireman.
yeah,
Um, Now there was one thing I thought they were going to get into that they actually didn't, because we're going to spoil the first episode to kind of talk about the show as a whole,
yeah, yeah,
because it's a sitcom. It's not about the plot; it's about the presentation and jokes.
right, yeah,
Um, so he shows up at his son's place, goes in, and there's an attractive woman there,
mhm,
who he finds out he's living with, and he assumes that they're dating,
mhm,
and they're they meet, and he leaves, and she's like, "When are you going to tell him about John?"
yeah,
And he was on, Daniel was on Discord. I was just rolling my eyes in the back of my head. Oh God,
yeah,
his, the son is going to be gay, and Frasier isn't going to be cool with that, or he's going to have to be, or yeah, it's going to be a conflict for reasons. Then I thought to
yeah,
myself, wait a second, Frasier is like a Harvard educated,
yeah,
um, hoity-toity type who felt comfortable moving from Boston to Seattle. Like,
yeah,
where's going to be there's not going to be a conflict there. Turns out that John is actually the infant son of the roommate and her deceased husband,
yeah,
who was another firefighter who had died.
yeah, and he's they decided to live together to cut down on their expenses, and yeah, and of course, yeah, there's a whole thing going on in the episode where they're trying to keep the baby away from, keep Frasier from seeing the baby, and then of course Frasier finds out and he automatically assumes that's his grandson.
Wait, which is probably why they were trying to keep the baby away from him anyway.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Because like he wasn't originally coming back to Boston, really. He was really just passing through on his way to Paris.
yeah,
But by the end of the episode, he ends up sticking around to be with his son.
yeah, and yeah, the other part of it too is the head of the psychology department at Harvard really wants Frasier to teach there.
Yep. Yeah. So those are like the conflict factors. Is he going
Right.
to teach at Harvard? Will he and his son reconnect? And what's going to happen with the woman and her baby?
Yeah.
Um, I would say that the son is actually kind of the weak point of the first episode, and still somewhat weak in the second.
Yeah. They we were talking about this before the show. They were obviously trying. They're obviously replaced his father with his son, because his father in the original show was very much like that. He was a beer drinker, and he liked
Yep.
sports, and he was just kind of the man's man. He wasn't really about the highfalutin hoity-toity lifestyle of Frasier and Niles.
I'm
Um,
guessing Fraser got this from his mother or something.
yeah, they got it from their mom. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yep. So, yep. That all tracks. The stuff with the nephew was good. I actually really liked the stuff with the British friend who was the Harvard teacher, because they kept making jokes about him not doing anything because he was tenured, and
yeah,
him being kind of a basket case. And
yeah, yeah. Yeah, he never goes to never does goes to class. He just lets his TA do it. And
yep.
and what I like too is their boss. She's very how what's the word, neurotic.
Yeah, like very insistent that yes, these people are going to teach for her.
Yeah, and she's trying to one up her sister who was already provost at Yale, and
Yes.
she wants to be a provost before, at a younger age than her sister. Yeah.
Yep. So they've already set up some good conflicts there. You have the nephew who's just kind of the wacky one
Hmm.
functionally.
Yeah, and he fills in the role of his father. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, the Frasier's son is just kind of he just isn't the actor isn't. I think it's partially because he hasn't been given a lot outside of a little bit of maudlin drama.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of jokes around him yet. Second episode improved that a little bit, I think, because like the bit where he was having to explain why he told his friends that his father had he had did he say his father had died or that he never knew who his father was?
And that he had died, I think. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and what's funny about that, what gets me is Frasier was upset about that, but Frasier did the same thing on Cheers. He told everybody that his father was dead, and then in one episode of Frasier, I can't remember who it was. One of the people from Cheers came for a visit, and he said, and they're like, "Yeah, he actually said you were dead," and his dad's like, "You told him I was dead."
So they turned a continuity flub into an episode.
Yes.
Yeah. So as far as where the shows go, oh, and as far as like the presentation, uh, we haven't talked much about Fraser himself. It's Kelsey Grammer. He's always going to turn in a good performance.
Oh yeah, yeah. And he is Frasier. It's not yeah, he's Frasier Crane. He isn't Frasier Johnson.
Yep.
This
He's
isn't yeah,
Jake Skywalker.
right. Yeah, they didn't do that with him. This he's staying they're staying true to the character, which is a breath of fresh air given how a lot of legacy characters from other franchises have been treated over the last few years.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's almost not worth talking about, besides the fact that he's great. But
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I also had forgotten how much I hated laugh tracks.
Yeah. I don't like them either. They tend to be very distracting.
Yeah. So on a but so as I like, would I continue watching it? If I do, it'll be for the strength of the school shenanigans and Frasier himself, the nephew
Yeah.
to a lesser extent.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. And yeah, hopefully they'll do more with his son. Give him.
Yeah. Also, I never really watched Cheers, but you know that they're going to anybody who's still alive is going to get a cameo on the show at some point.
Yeah. Um yeah, I wouldn't I would love to see George Wendt in that episode. Hey, Norm.
Uh, That, yeah, of course, if they do that, they have to make some sort of joke about everybody knowing his name somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they might and they may at some point bring in BB Newirth, who played she's Fraser the ex-wife, Fraser's ex-wife, and
Mm,
Freddie's mother. So
okay, yeah, that would make sense.
yeah,
Yeah, they've got a lot of angles to play here.
yeah, yeah,
Um, Now, if this sounds interesting, it's on Paramount Plus, which I, it keeps being my favorite streaming service. I don't know how or why.
I don't know either. They just they
It keeps working out. I come up with random old movies I want to watch, and they're on Paramount Plus.
yeah
Like even things recommended by totally unrelated YouTube channels.
yeah